Hello, hi, and welcome again to the Terminal Podcast, where in the end, it's all about the numbers. This podcast is looking back to 2018 and the original publication of the rap debut album Tournament, or the RDAT. My guests tonight have reviewed some parts of the articles published at martinkester.com and have dropped in the terminal to continue this ever-evolving conversation like civilized citizens. So we'll start with your name, where you're calling from, and a debut album, a debut rap album that you feel has been forgotten in this tournament bracket. I'll start to my right and ask Kenny.
Hey, this is Kenny calling in from McDonough. And although technically it's not a debut album because they dropped the EP, the album I think is missing, that should not be missing, is Mecca and the Soul Brother by Pete Rock and CL Smooth.
Hmm, I think, yeah, that was in consideration. Um, Dan.
Hey, this is Dan. I am calling in from Bergen County, New Jersey. The one that I think, I mean, there's probably a few, but the one that came to mind right away was Cypress Hill's debut album.
Yeah,
Definitely could have been on there, even though they veered in a slightly different direction afterwards. But that debut album is pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, it is.
you say that, and it's funny because I sat and I listened to that as I kind of came through this first thing, and I went through it again, and it's just so you really have to be in their vibe to. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like because that's lyrically speaking too, and everything like that. It's a I don't know. I understand what you're saying, and you're right. And there's countless samples of people that were taken from that album and everything like that. But I'm going off onto another subject. The reason that we're able to do this podcast is I got funding for this from a forgotten legend, one that is spoken of with reverence. This is tonight's podcast is brought to you by our corporate champion, Factual American History. Did you know that George Washington owned slaves? He inherited him, he inherited them from his father, and while historians note that he was fair and kind to them, they were still his property. Now, after the war, when the nation's capital was located in Philadelphia, Washington and his property moved to Pennsylvania. The state's abolished the state's Abolition Act of 1780 released all slaves living within the state after their 28th birthday. And to circumvent this rule, the first president would travel back and forth to Mount Vernon, thereby resetting the clock. Uh, I mentioned that because I just read Burn Down Master's House, which was a historical fictional story with a specific story that actually dealt with exactly that, where this slave was going back and forth and was counting the days, but when she kind of got back over, there's a whole big court case. I said all that. That's got nothing to do with anything. I just wanted to share that I read a book.
Okay, well, that helps because that was kind of a somber way to start the conversation about
Yeah,
hip hop.
well, it is. It hip hop is in, it's somber right now because I was the algorithm from YouTube is spitting up videos for me that it's like, yeah, the children's of today are saying the same thing. It's like that rap isn't saying anything anymore, and it's the same problems that that I don't know if it's I'm old and the algorithm is spitting what I want to see, or is it that the kids themselves are recognizing that they're not getting anything from their music and asking older, like people like you, Dan, what you would think about it isn't helping the subject as far as the youth are saying, but what do you think the youth are thinking about when it comes to hip hop these days?
Well, I mean, the answer to your question with the algorithm is it's showing you what you want. That's what it does.
Yeah,
So, you know, the interesting thing is that rap is mainstream, and the kids have grown up with that. Like we didn't grow up with it being mainstream accepted. It was like just veering towards that, but it really wasn't like there's not like this rebel controversial thing you could be doing by listening to rap music at this point. Like
that's
it's pop
interesting.
music. You know what I mean? It took over like there's
Yeah,
so like I think there's always going to be that complaint about rap music where it's like or what are they really saying? Is it, like, because some of like the when it's done poorly or like mediocrely, it's like, yeah, it's a little dull if they're always talking about gangster stuff or party stuff or whatever. But like that stuff can be done really well, and it's still pretty great. Great rap doesn't have to be like you know talking about George Washington owning slaves and traveling back and forth. It doesn't have to be that. Like it can
No,
just be it can be fun. It just has to be done well. But from like the music to like the how they say it, the lyrical style, all that stuff. And I think that complaint will always live, because I think that's like the same as like complaining about pop music versus complaining about like real music or whatever. Like that. So I think that's what the youth are going to end up gravitating towards, is like you get your intro is pop, and then for the people who get serious about music, where do you go from there? And then you instinctively say like, well, I hate this pop stuff because it seems so like aimed at the least common denominator.
I think it's interesting as you're saying that because there's people going back and kind of looking back on things. And I'm recognizing, and this whole going back, even with this tournament and everything like that, is they're going to be going back to basically our childhood, and that's what they're going to be the research. They're going to be researching this. They're going to be researching 90s and early in late 80s and stuff like that as the foundations for it, as opposed to. And I guess I look back on it as far as rock music is, in terms of looking back, as like I distinctly kind of felt like in the era that I grew up in, I guess we're Gen X or Zennials or whatever, is the rock music that was coming out there when it was Guns N' Roses and AC/DC to an extent and things like that. I mean, that was playing just then. Well, AC/DC is the wrong example, because it was like there was also the classic rock station that was playing Zeppelin, that was playing the Beatles, that was playing that old 60s stuff like that. And that was sort of the classic stuff. Does that even exist? I guess it does, kind of, Kenny, where you can listen to a 90s thread of hip hop, right?
I think you can, and yes and no. The answer to your question, because it kind of brings up something that bothers me a lot, is the fact that just like with the classic rock artists, like the Eagles, they're on their last tour right now. The Rolling
Hmm.
Stones, Aerosmith, these are bands that their core audience still appreciates and buys their music, goes to see them on tour. Whereas with hip hop, when an artist gets to a certain point and we move on to the next hot thing, we just discard these artists. We don't look
Yeah.
for them anymore. We don't bother to go see them when they're on tour. So yeah. So the answer to that would be yes or no. I guess after a certain point, fans do start to dig in a crate, so to speak, to kind of listen to some of the classic hip hop, but not like we should.
The
Oh.
I would just say like you're right. Like it's turned a little bit. If you like LL Cool J has the Rock the Bells radio on satellite, and they do a lot to try to like talk, I mean, like like represent the artists, and like the ones that are still doing things today, like they're trying to reverse some of that, but really it's not ingrained. Like it's like that is a hip hop is kind of was born as a youth genre of music,
And
and
you
it gets to that, like if it's
you
if it's
say
not
that,
modern, it's tough.
but
Yeah.
I'm cutting you off only because I don't want to step over the fact that I literally saw this morning, or like yesterday morning, that the Rolling Stones apparently are getting ready to release an album. Like they were showing shots of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards in a recording studio. Like they're going to release a new album with new music, and they're like 80 years old. So,
Exactly.
and they're exactly what you're saying, though. They were youth. They were, it's like they were young and stealing and stealing the blues music from the 50s and everything like that before them, but at least did it honestly, and then turned out and did their own stuff. I mean, it was like that's kind of what it was supposed to be, at the very least, in the sense of listening to, quote, the classics, quote, the old school stuff, and understanding that and not necessarily mimicking it, but using off of that and then doing your own thing. but that doesn't seem, and maybe I'm missing it, but I mean, I'm not looking for it. So maybe if I looked for it, I don't think I'd find that. I don't think I'd find a lot of different artists that were kind of doing that. And I'm speaking from ignorance because I can. So
There's a like it's not as extensive as with rock, but like LL Cool J had an album I think last year that was reasonably pretty good. They also put out a new one. Nas
mhm.
has put out new pretty consistently new music that has done well. Tribe Called Quest came back and did something interesting right before
I
Fife
remember
died. Like I think
let's
if he
say
hadn't, unfortunately, that they might have kept going. They,
you have it from
you know,
here.
so like yeah, they like it's just not there's not the nostalgia creation industry that is there for rock and roll, for hip hop yet. I mean, it may never come, but like there's just like this money printing complex that's like keeping
You
middle aged and older white guys
you say it
like
never come, and I'll jump off of that. Exactly that. Middle-aged over white women have made it where back that ass up is going to live forever, because that song it is we laugh, but I'm 100% true, because there's an entire generation of black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter, women that are going to hear those ding, hear those bells start, and they're going to immediately go, oh, this is my jam.
Oh
That
yeah,
exists. That exists. So all right.
yeah.
And
yeah,
That song will live
the
forever.
yeah,
yes. The line you want to walk is like, are you trotting them out for nostalgia, or are they actually continuing to put things out as an artist that's interesting, right? Like, if it's
but
just
did
trotting the
but
Eagles out to
did
play Hotel California for the billionth time, or is it like,
but you're
you
right.
know,
But are they not doing that? Have they not done that for like the last 35, 40 years? I thought that was the whole thing. They make jokes about the fact that they're touring from hell. The Grateful, I mean, I guess it's because they always did it, but like the Dead touring and Fish and bands like that just tour. I guess
Yeah.
they tour forever regardless. But what I mean, it's like that's
that
the way
style
they
of
make
music is
their
a whole other
money.
deal?
No, that's a whole
Yes.
separate thing, because there's it's not Tony Braxton and New Edition. Who else was part of that concert that came here in Atlanta that had the whole
Boys to
place
Men.
shut down? Boys to Men. Like, so there's an R&B, sort of R&B New Jack Swing element that can do that exact same thing and get crowds, because State Farm 2 nights, that place was packed.
Absolutely, it
It's
really was.
so
Yeah.
I guess we have to wait age wise. I don't necessarily dislike that, because I'm not a person that goes to concerts. I'll get back to why we were here, which was talking about the RDAT, and I'll ask each of you, what have you disliked the most about this tournament, just flat out? This was a softball question for a, a person who was supposed to be here, but unfortunately wasn't unable to be. But Dan, you had anything that you've disliked the most about this?
No, dislike's too strong. Like I said, I know the complaint that the other guy had, which was like the constraints of like only talking about a debut album. I think the
Mm,
hardest thing about it is judging a debut album by
yes,
itself versus like
yes,
in the context of that person's career. That's probably like the most
exactly.
difficult part about it. Because
It's
like when we talked about some of these, like they're important, but like as an album, there's pieces of it that don't work and like you throw
mhm.
away, and like then if you go back and like, but they're there because of how important either that particular sound was at that time or how important that turned out to be for their career. So like there's other albums that probably like a debut album that never had a second album that's pretty good that could have made this list, but you can't really, it's hard to really, you can't judge, it's hard to make a vacuum for these things, right? Like you can't like ignore the context
I would
completely.
argue, and as the person who chose the people in it, I felt like I kind of looked towards something like that, where it was you only had this one album, because I could argue the whole Most Def and Talib Kweli are Black Star. That's it. That they just came out with this other album, but that was their one album of the two of them, and that's also you're right, is as far as I don't necessarily, well, I guess I'm arguing for myself, but the 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 definition the difficulty level of doing something that is meaningful your first time out. You know what I mean? Not necessarily. I mean, like that's the whole thing. It's not easy. It does shorten the amount of people in the room. Yes, it's a thinner wire, and so that Illmatic is still spoken about in irreverent tones, and that was the first album that he actually put down. Is why it is so amazing. It's why it's not. It's going to be a tough number one overall to beat because, but the Wu-Tang put out 36 chambers. It's like so there are possibilities. It's not easy because if you think about it, Michael Jackson. Well, I could argue Michael Jackson's Off the Wall would be is like yeah, high. That's a great album, but there are other artists who you'd go their first album wasn't necessarily the greatest. Like Prince's first album was a great album, but it's not 1983. I mean, it's not what he's gonna do before, but that first album is what we're trying to judge. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
and I'm
And I
speaking
think, look,
completely.
I think the like, sometimes you have to for the purposes of these types of exercises, you have to put some constraints on it. Otherwise, just
Hmm.
because we're not talking about the greatest rap albums of all time. You wanted to talk
That too.
about debut
Yeah.
albums, so you got to put some constraint on it. It's which is like I said, dislike isn't right. It's just it leads to some challenges as we talk about it, and like how far do you draw in the like you heard this like I said like the when we talked about the OutKast album, like as a
Mhm.
standalone album, pretty good, but like how do you ignore the fact that like that was the launch pad for that amazing group that like did so much after that.
Kenny, anything you
Dan is
dislike?
absolutely right. I have the same thing that there were a lot of albums that we had to leave off the list because they made guest appearances on other albums. So technically, we couldn't look at it as a true debut album. That
Like
was the
who?
big thing for me.
Like who?
Like Doggy Style, for example, because Snoop was all over like the Chronic album, for example.
Oh
That would
yeah,
have been
yeah,
a
yeah,
great
yeah, yeah.
competition,
No.
conversation to talk about Doggy Style. I think like certain albums from the boot camp clip and things like that. So I just hate that we missed out on a lot of those conversations. But uh, once again, not necessarily a dislike, but maybe a slight disappointment that we don't get to have those conversations.
No, they're like there's got to be some sort of constraints to it. The other, but you're right, but because then it just becomes okay. Well, it could just be well, who's the top 20, top 20 greatest, and you're sitting there going back and forth with well, then this person and that person, everything like that. There's
Right.
got to do something. Um, and this was 2018, so uh,
It would
that,
also be a fun exercise to like go through like what you just talked about, Kenny, like the song that you like the greatest songs when you first heard a great rapper, like going like live at the barbecue was the first time Nas was on record and things like
Absolutely. You're
things like that.
right.
Like because there'd be a lot of cool things to talk about in that one. Because I mean I wouldn't put that main source record on this list, although it's pretty good. But live at
yeah.
the barbecue is pretty. That's the first
Oh,
time Nas is on
absolutely.
record.
I want to say Redman is on an EPMD record, but I want to say it's hardcore. If I think hard enough, like it's him
That's the
and K
one.
Solo,
Hardcore.
yeah, and you he's Redman. He's ripping it, but if I'm saying I want to say Redman rips it, something like that might be in there, but
Red Man ready to
yeah,
rock rough rhymes.
that's like that's what I was thinking. It's like yeah, no, it's it's a I mean, I guess it's a genre that we can kind of talk about because I we grew up with all this. So yeah, it's history. I'm saying it like that because I just feel so sad about it.
I
So
know.
if
Me too,
there
brother.
is there anything, I kind of put this as a general question. If there are any albums you think that were missing or a thing like that that you could have added in based off the current structure of, see, that was the whole thing, trying to come up with some sort of structure to kind of break this down to. So there's groups. I made one of Queens because Illmatic's the number one seed, so therefore he'll get his own bracket. And there's enough artists coming out of Queens that they earned their own bracket, in my opinion. The rest of New York City, and then outside of New York City, which is a much larger thing, but groups kind of narrows down the numbers. Was there anything that you guys looked at with a a little bit of time to look it over, and you kind of said, well, this album could have got put into here? Anything, Kenny?
That's a good question.
I mean, I guess you could
Yeah,
argue it. You did say Doggy Style, and
right.
yeah, he's
Um, oh no, go ahead. You're fine.
no, I was gonna say because Doggy Style would be, I guess he'd be in the outside NYC bracket.
Right, definitely. But
But
yeah.
that's where you'd have to point. If you're going to point to stuff that probably should be on here that isn't, it's the outside New York stuff that seems like you have a little more of a East Coast bias on this whole thing, which again, from where we grew
Yes,
up, understandable. But like NWA is not on there, straight out of Compton,
yeah,
like that.
I
That
I'm
probably
not
should
a
be.
fan. I'm just not a fan of. I'm not a fan of that album. I don't. Yeah, I mean, and I and could easily say that Straight Outta Compton there, but what's the next one? No, Straight Outta Compton's not their debut album. There's one
Well, they
before
had
it.
an EP that dropped before then. Same situation with Pete Rock and CL Smooth. They had an EP because I think it also had the
Because it's got
Egyptian
Express
Lover on.
Yourself. It's got a couple releases on that first album that's why I kind of it wasn't. I have to look up, but yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say you were
Oh no,
saying
you're fine. But no, I think Express Yourself was on Straight Outta Compton though. But I think like Dope Man might have been on the EP.
mm, all right, this is called
The
this is
other
called
one,
good podcasting.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the other one you could do is like I think you're light on newer stuff too, or like relatively newer stuff. So like
My
I
I
think
stopped at I think I want to say I stopped at what's the number? 2015 is kind of when I stopped because Kendrick is kind of where I looked, and it's that Good Kid, Mad City is like album 2 and stuff like that. It's not
is
it
that
was yeah, there was something before that was why. Yeah. I'm going, why didn't no, Straight Outta
yeah I
Compton
think
is 89. Hmm.
like I said when I did the modern thing and I asked ChatGPT to tell me the top 10 rap debut albums just to see what it would say. And listen, the only thing that really that you missed from there is the
Straight
Straight
Outta
Outta Compton
Compton.
and Good Kid, Mad City, and they have the Chronic on there, which again, if you want to argue that like it's not the first time you hear Dr. Dre, it's the first Dr. Dre
No.
solo. Again, like how do you count this, a solo album coming out of a group versus a true debut? That's a
Right.
that's probably a
They're
little more
counted, but
defensively debatable.
it's you're counted as the group. You knew who Dr. Dre was because you knew of him from NWA. So you came into that album with some sort of an expectation already, as opposed to you putting in, even just like putting in a Redman album. You might have heard, what I mean, that song or something like that. You might have heard about him or something, but you didn't hear that was the whole thing. It's the ability to be like, I've never really heard this before. The freshness of it, that kind of hit. That's kind of why I felt I was trying to that's
That
really what
makes
I was
sense.
trying to narrow down to, because it's just like, yeah, if you like Doggy Style, you come into Doggy Style, you know Snoop. You're friends with Snoop already. You
Yeah,
and Snoop have hung out. You on the corner
like I
with him.
said,
So when he says stuff,
Right.
you're like, okay, it's a continuation of it.
Right. And that makes sense.
Dave,
Because it kind of reminds me of, when we used to go to the record shop every Tuesday and you discover that new artist like the Boogie Monsters, for example. And so
Mm,
I know what you mean. Somebody that you never heard before, haven't heard them on somebody else's album. So I get it. I get the freshness of it.
huh. Yeah, I think Straight Outta Compton, probably just because I'm not big into West Coast, and I want to say I did listen to that album beforehand, listen to it, and yeah, I think it's on there. That's on there more because of the that would go into the groups category, and I feel like it's really there more because of the what's the word I'm looking for? the the cultural importance of it and everything like that, as opposed to the actual songs on the album. Like, go and actually listen to that album start to finish, and you'll kind of go, all right, so there are some really standout ones, and there are a lot of tracks it's like, okay. And I'm not, and I take that back. I forget. I'm not a fan of Easy at all. So
I
Oh
was just about to say
anytime he's on a
yeah.
track, I'm like, anytime
he's
he's on a track, I'm like, because he's not great. He's not great. He's just not.
No,
I'm
no.
you'd be hard
he's
pressed to go
he's
ahead.
a slightly less clownish Flavor Flav. Like he's there as a character more than a talented
Yeah.
lyricist.
But Flav also recognizes he's a character. Flav can rap. You kidding me? 911 is a joke. Flav's got a couple bars, but Flav understands what he is. Easy thinks Easy's like the and I can say it. Remember the cartoons, the Bugs Bunny cartoons where they have the mobs guys and they had the little mob guy. He'd be like, they have the big bully mob guys and they had the little guy. He'd be like 3 feet
Yeah.
tall and they lift him up. That's Easy as far as I'm concerned. They lift him yap 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 like that and everything like that.
Yeah.
And they dealt with
Gotta be
because
curtain.
it's
See? You know what I mean?
basically
See?
basically, yeah. No, I'm never was a fan of Easy. Never liked his rhyme style. Never liked his voice. And yeah, no. And then helped out by the fact that he wasn't a great person to begin with. So it's like, yeah, that came out. So yeah, no, I and Straight Outta Compton, I can definitely understand. But would they be? I'll ask this: is Straight Outta Compton in the finals in the group stage? Would Straight Outta Compton be able to would have taken out OutKast? What was that? OutKast and Black Star was the lead in to that to the
No.
so is Straight Outta Compton going to win out of either of those?
No. No.
I mean, not to my taste, but again, if you're talking like, I think you're right. Like, I think if you listen to the thing from beginning to end, it probably doesn't hold up as well. But like the importance of just the song, right? Like of
Mm-hmm.
just that breakthrough, that like you know that like
Public Enemy was in this
yeah.
tournament, and I'm not a Public Enemy fan at all. I was gonna say, yeah, but you're right. The importance of it, it's monumental. It's
We still have to unpack that one of these days. This whole thing, this whole animosity you have against Public Enemy, we
it's
still
not
have to figure that out.
animosity. It's just beyond what they're saying. I'm just Chuck D's whole style. I'm just not a fan of his style. It's like
That's amazing.
I honestly went back and was like, I like Flavor Flav songs more. I like more Flavor Flav songs by Public Enemy than I do Chuck D songs by Public Enemy. Like, now one is a joke. See, there's another one I went back there and I was like, I remember this Flavor Flav song. I was going back and forth. I was doing the lyrics. But yeah, for Flav, but not Chuck D. He's yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting.
It's
And
just
and this
not
is even after listening to one of the most important hip hop albums in hip hop history. It takes Nation of Millions.
mm,
Even listen to that album. No song grabbed your attention.
look, it's not I don't even say it's not my style, but it's just I don't know. I was never a fan of the the sound that they were doing on. I mean, like it's Terminator X and everything like that. That whole it just I wasn't it didn't hit for me. It wasn't there for me. I just can't.
It's
And
fair. Like it's
and
got more.
Yo Bum
It's an
Rush the
aggressive
Show is
sound.
actually, yeah, I was gonna say, but it's not even that it's aggressive because let me think who's
The
aggressive
production
now,
is
things like
busy.
that.
Like
Yeah.
no, but like the production is not like if you liked production that's a little more subtle, it's a little more like undertone instead of like in your face, like that. Public Enemies, like that whole what they do is in your face. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
noisy.
Very
There's like a
chaotic.
million
Right.
samples coming at you. It's like I mean, it's getting you hyped up music. It's not like you know smoothly
I'm
driving at night in the car type of music. You know what I mean?
yes. Yeah, I'm not okay. I'm not because it could be a style thing, but I just yeah, no. I yeah, I was trying to go back through to see about like the albums, the songs, stuff like that. But yeah, just never, just never. I don't know. He sounds like if you were going through see, this is an East Coast thing. If you're going through Washington Square Park, if you're going through the Boston Common and someone was sitting there, someone, and even on the street corners out here, see, that would be me disrespecting. I'm probably putting him in a park where he's actually the leader of a protest. Like you see somebody out there who's got the megaphone and they're yelling and screaming and stuff like that. That's what he sounds like to me, with the same interruption of because his flow isn't that's the other part of it, because I'm listening to what you're saying and how you're trying to put to connect the words, and he does that a lot, which is you're not flowing easy enough to then be able to go, I don't all right. I'm rambling on about this. Well, I'll start, and because this is very least we can preview the Elite Eight of the albums that are left. And Public Enemy was in the early parts of the group stages, but they were bounced. And I could go back through, but I won't have to, because who is left is the Wu-Tang Clan and OutKast. So, quick preview and the Elite Eight groups final heading into the RDAT. Sorry, there'd be like the ESPN or the CBS Sports music is in the background right now. Dun, 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 as this is the preview, this is the preview music or whatever like that, and you're seeing cuts from the different albums. I don't know how they're doing layups or things like that, or Inspector Dex taking a three, and then you see this is Big Boy with a rebound. He's boxing out and he slams it home or something like that. I don't know. So, any thoughts? Any thoughts? First thoughts on Wu-Tang versus Outkast? Dan, got anything?
I think if you base it on how we've talked about those two episodes, I have a hard time envisioning Wu Tang getting upset here, just because like that record for Wu Tang is like is their best record, probably, like almost, you might be able to argue that, but probably not. Like it's just like that statement, that document. I mean, it launched a whole bunch of other things, but you go back to that one and it holds up. Like where the OutKast
Hmm.
one, that's not their best album. It's a good album. So I think that's probably where it's going to be. Take an interesting argument to convince. I mean, for me to convince me that like the OutKast one's better than the Wu Tang one.
Penny, you got all the A behind you now.
I agree with Dan. Absolutely. Outkast's first album is very solid, debut. But like the Wu Tang album was just different from anything that was released during that time for hip hop, and I just can't see Outkast. I just can't see it upset in this situation.
Hmm. Like I said, this
If you're
is
putting
this
up,
is a
like Aquemini or pick a different one, it's a different conversation.
Yeah,
But
but
absolutely.
but
that
these two,
becomes a whole separate thing, because I would
right?
argue that 36 Chambers is without question the best Wu-Tang album, and it kind
Yeah,
of that's the apex of Wu-Tang as the Wu-Tang Clan, as an entire clan, as in, I mean, like yes, it spawns everybody. Everybody jumps off of the Wu-Tang. All the different lions go off and have their own adventures. They have their own storybooks and everything like that. But when they all came together as Voltron, when just having to form the head on disc one, they did. I mean,
Right.
like, what is it? What's it? Triumph? Is Triumph the one in 2000 or 99 when
Triumph,
it came?
Wu Tang
no,
Forever.
No,
Yeah,
it's Wu Tang
yeah,
Forever.
Wu-Tang
It's Wu
Forever.
Tang
yeah,
Forever.
Wu Tang Forever. Yep. So,
Which is a bloated double album, like
Thank you.
which
Yeah,
people were doing back then. Like there's great songs in that album, but like there's a lot of also not great
a
songs in that album.
lot of
So
filler stuff on there. If that album, if it was streamlined to just one album, it would probably be even better than Into the
possibly,
36. Yeah,
possibly, but it wasn't. Was it
this is
was
true.
a 2 album slog, and I remember it was like, oh, all right. So,
it,
and then so I haven't even. I guess Triumph is. I don't even. I know of Triumph as a name. I don't even think I've listened to it to be able to judge it or anything like that. But no one's been like, yo, you have to hear this or something like that. Not that someone should have to, but yeah, that's all right. That's a whole separate thing. Um, I've started this whole thing talking about this whole this whole idea of this, spawned in 2018 as I was sitting and thinking, and it's just like Nas is the greatest lyricist hip hop speaking wise because there's no one who wouldn't at the very least have to put them in their top five. That if you're, I think that's the one thing you can kind of say. It's like there's very few. It's hard to say he's not top five. I think he's number one, but it's also hard to say that Illmatic's not one of the greatest rap albums of all time and everything like that. And that's got the whole foundation and everything like that. And so that's where all this starts from. Um, and then if you go back to, what's it? I was gonna say, so rap starts in the Bronx and then, everything like that. But then Queens kind of comes out and has Nas and 50 Cent and Tribe Called Quest, right? Because they're gonna come out of Queens. I mean, like there's so many that kind of it's there's a whole Brooklyn thing about it too and everything like that. But that was the excuse to give Nas his own bracket, which would be the Queens bracket as the number one overall seed. Uh does I
What's it up
mean
against?
uh Get Rich or Die Trying, which is
Oh,
I can go against Nas and I can go against Nas and Jigga both for the throw. Like he said it. He said it. He's gonna get a shot. So I mean, honestly, it's like I say that 50 Cent album, it really does stand up.
It
That's
does.
yeah. Dan,
I
no,
agree.
you don't agree.
so you get into back to the personal taste thing. Like
Hmm.
I readily admit that 50 Cent does not do it for me.
Hmm.
Never has. I tried again, like it just doesn't, which is a me thing. That not so much like so I'm mature enough to say that just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's bad.
All right.
Um, I would be. I mean, look, it's a monster record, right? So like, I mean, as far as like, it'd be interesting to see like commercially successful of what's left. This has got to be, if it's not the number one, it's got to be pretty close to it. Like,
I,
but as far as like knocking off like I mean, Illmatic is almost almost a perfect album. So
it's
it's
an
like
overall number one seed
I don't
for a
know what can
reason.
knock that off.
Yeah. Honestly, Illmatic is the hip hop version of Songs in the Key of Life. There's nothing that's
Yeah.
knocking it off.
Or what's it like the White Album or something like that. It's like, yeah, there's no, it's
Exactly.
just like yeah, no, this is rumors. Um I'm sitting there just running
When
through
you
like the way
Exactly.
Solid trying
Rumors,
to
Purple
right,
Rain,
yeah,
Thriller, Songs in the
yeah,
Key.
yeah, kind of blue, or one of those type, to
Exactly.
pick a genre. But like
exactly, yeah.
when Illmatic was getting made, if you listen to like the stories that people tell around that, like they
Hmm.
knew it was going to be huge before it came out. Like everybody
Hmm.
knew that was like in hip hop at that point, like that Nas was different and he was going to be the greatest MC of all time after hearing him on like just off the like the one track that they heard him off of, and so it's like it is going to be hard to
I'll
say anything that's better than that.
Right.
I
Okay, you can make some arguments about like equal. I would hear it, but like I said, like if
the
someone wanted to like make a track by track case for one of these, like maybe like the Wu-Tang album or one of the other ones, like I'd want to hear it at least. Like I don't think it's like impossible to argue. It's difficult to argue.
well, that's you're already into the championship, which is the Elite Eight. We still got
Right, right.
rounds there.
Yes,
I
good luck
hear
for the
what you're
rest.
saying. I hear what you're saying. You're right because, and I mentioned it before the whole breakdown of the city because there's a whole borough that's very loud. It was a lot louder before. You're still outside, not in the city, but you are next to it. How does Brooklyn? It's changed. It's like it's not. I've I'm
God, it's
please go ahead.
my family's from there, right? Like my mom grew up in Brooklyn. My
Mhm.
grandparents lived there when I was growing up. Like and like the tenor of what Brooklyn is has changed so many different times. When we were growing up, like
Mhm.
Brooklyn was, scary and dangerous, and like it connoted a certain thing of like, it's pretty hardcore over there. Brooklyn today, again, I mean, there's still parts of it that might be like that, but when you say Brooklyn now, you think about hipsters, and you're thinking about like, artisan coffee, pickles, and like, stuff like
Exactly.
that. Like,
And that's you're right though, but that's
John
just
P's rolling over in his
within our
grave. You know what I
lifetime.
mean?
But before that, it was the different ethnicities that had kind of moved
Absolutely. Yeah.
from here to there, and then moved. I feel like yeah, I was gonna say I want to say Chris was saying yeah, it's like you start in the lower Manhattan area, something like that, and then you move over into the boroughs, out into Brooklyn and Queens. You know what I mean? It's like, and then you move from there out into Jersey, and if you get really rich then you move out to Long Island or Staten Island. And if you're really, really rich, then you go out into Connecticut. And
There
you're
you
up
go.
there
There you
True.
go.
and you're making that. Yeah, what was it? I was going to say you're making that Gilmore money because I don't
Yeah.
know if y'all yeah, the money that those people have, but that's true Connecticut money. That's real money that's out there. Which is what uh Jay has, hence why he's got dreads and he's sitting on the front row at the Knicks game or at the Met
Yeah.
Gala with them big
Oh
things.
yeah, exactly.
It's what everybody thinks Biggie would have had, and I think that really becomes because the other side of the NYC bracket is Jay versus Biggie, which is and that, like you were saying, it becomes is it how can you remove the conversation from it's just reasonable doubt versus ready to die, and it's only those you can only look at those two, and honestly that helps Biggie because there's not much afterwards, which is the other sort of so it becomes a Haley's Comet versus the sun kind of thing. It's like this is the north, the star is always going to be there. It's been bright, there's been other times where it's been brighter than it has been before and everything like that, but you see Haley's Comet up close. And yeah, I don't know. Thoughts,
Yeah,
Kenny,
that'll be
Dan?
interesting to go track for track on those two, because like I think that's how you have to do it. If you want to try to keep it just like without the
Mm,
rest of the story, without the rest of anything else, you just say, okay, like track by track, and then rank the best ones. And if there's more of one versus the other in your top ranking, that probably tells you which record's better.
so
When it comes to those two, that's probably I have to do it. That might be a little subjective, but that could be an interesting because
Kenny,
that one's really close, I think.
Kenny, who
It
who who
is.
who gets points for Brooklyn's finest? Still work.
Oh wow. So big. I think Biggie had the better verses on
Yeah,
Brooklyn's Finest, but
it's so
it really
fire.
is. It's
I'm
it's
so
it's such a
fire.
fire. Everything about that song is so crazy. The sample, the just the rhyme structure, just everything about that
The
song is
story, the
wonderful.
history of it, the whole fact. Apparently, they were both came in the studio and looking around, waiting for someone to come out with something because they both didn't realize that they both write at the same time and blah 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 and everything like that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't see. I feel as if, like Haley's comment, if you see it that one time and it was this amazing thing, we always think, but if it had continued, you know what I mean? I feel like Big kind of gets a lot, it's not credit's not the right word, but he gets a lot more reverence because we don't know what would have happened next. You know what I mean? Whereas
I mean,
like Big Pun
when they
doesn't
when
get
they
that
die
same
young,
sort of Big Pun doesn't get that
that's what.
same sort of reverence though. It's like Big
Hmm?
Pun doesn't get that same sort of Big L. As I continue with Big, apparently,
Right.
Big L doesn't get that same sort of love. Big Pun doesn't get. I mean, they kind of do, but they
They,
don't get it
they
to
weren't
that.
they weren't as big of a star. Like Biggie was the biggest star at that time, and like so like the cut short, like the narrative, like we lost so much, cut short, like look, I mean, Big L, Big Pun, both incredible, and like it sucks that they died young too. But every time you get the died young one, you get the like they never had a chance to get older and do weird stuff. Like
That's
who knows
that
if
too.
Biggie would have. put out a flute album too, So
Well, it's. I think the thing is that when you go back and listen to Life After Death, you could really hear that Biggie was really. You can hear the potential where, in basketball terms, if we use a Michael Jordan reference, he was going to put up the season where he was going to lead the league in scoring, win the league MVP, and be Defensive Player of the Year. That you could see that was coming from Biggie. And I would think that would be the big difference. Why, and if you go back with like Big Pun and listen to Yeah Baby, you kind of see that Big Pun was probably going to level out at that point. He was who he was going to be, but you could just see something greater for Big from that Life After Death album.
I going to the outside NYC bracket because you're saying that both of these guys because it's M versus Kanye, and as far as listening to that album and seeing what they were going to do next and everything like that, and kind of hearing it and everything just off the Rookie album though, that's the thing, it's just off the Rookie album because you don't get 2001, you know what I mean, like am I wrong, right? 2001 hasn't, you get Slim Shady album before 2001, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that it's only state. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I remember hearing. I remember hearing that and just going, "This is. Who is this?" And it's that kind of. It was that kind of thing. Whereas Kanye, and I almost feel he kind of gets a cheat code because you heard him. You know what I mean? But you didn't know it was him until he does College Dropout. You know what I mean? You kind of heard, because once you kind of hear College Dropout, you look back, oh, so he produced this and this and this, and now I can kind of hear that same sound that I heard off of what I hear College Dropout. No, am I hyping these up the wrong way? I feel like this is the best. This is the 4-5 matchup as far as I'm concerned. This is the two albums that are the two closest that you're kind of going, all right, well, you know, yeah. No,
Yeah,
anything?
the Kanye case is interesting. You're right, because it's he was a producer, like it's a producer rapper album in a way that I think none of the rest of what we're talking about is exactly that.
Right.
And the Eminem one, the first time you hear it, you wonder if it's novelty or not, right? Like, is it, it's a
That
white rapper, like this
yes.
the Slim
That
Shady
is
song. It's like it's catchy.
Right.
Is
that's
it going to be a
exactly
novelty
right.
thing or not? And it's
Well,
it's not. I mean, it turned out to be not, but but that's
here's
the
the
sort of
thing.
question that's there with the first album, right?
But as I say, it's if you had no idea and someone just you put the album on, and after the whole PSA craziness and everything like that, um, when I was just a little that there's the whole build up because then you get guilty conscience, and then yeah, because once Dre's there, kind of like he says, he's once you hear Dre and the Dre beats and everything like that, it kind of you're like, okay, so I guess this is okay. I mean, like you said, it's the first sort of thing. It's like this does sound like a novelty act. What is this? And then Dre, which means it's okay. And then yeah, he's it's a 4-5 matchup. I'm sitting there looking it over. So if I've already said Nas is the overall number one, so it'd be Nas, Wu-Tang, and I'm just going off bracket wise because I could ask if you want to do an overall out of the final eight. So maybe that would be a that's the other puzzle in terms of if you had to rank those 1 through 8 right now. If I have Nas as the overall number one, I'll try and do this as quick as possible. And we just said Eminem, Kanye is a 4-5. Um, Wu-Tang being the two, uh, Biggie is the three. So then M being the four, Kanye the five, that leaves Reasonable Doubt as the six. OutKast is a 7 seed, and Get Rich or Die Trying is a very controversial 8 seed. I mean, very controversial, number 8, ranked number 8 overall, as opposed
Right.
to it's probably ranked higher out of that group, but in this bracket, they're Yeah. No? Anything, Dan?
I mean, you would put Eminem and Kanye over reasonable doubt for sure. That was the one that stood out to me, probably.
No. No, I'd have reasonable doubt over them. Yeah. But I was looking at it just I was ranking just based off of the final eight that we had there. They're standing up as far as that kind of going, well, if this is their eight, then there's a one. But no, these are from different brackets. So
Okay.
it's a one, it's a 1-3 from that bracket and a 1-2 from that. I mean, like everything like that. But overall, like I was
Like
just
I said,
saying,
if you
yeah.
if you were just taking those eight and ranking them 1 through 8,
Hmm.
I would have a little different order than what you said. But I mean, again, like
No, I was gonna say, go
outside
ahead.
of
I was
like
gonna
the top three, you can like it's debatable, I think, and it's some of it comes down to probably a bit of
So wait, what's the
personal
one, two,
taste
three then? So
versus.
yeah, so what's the 1, 2, 3? Let me. I
I
thought
mean,
out of the
Illmatic,
top two, it's Nas Wu-Tang is 1, 2,
yeah,
right? So then who's the three?
Biggie.
Yeah, ready to die.
Yeah. See, yeah. Because if I was gonna say, I was sitting there going, could I argue that 50 is the three? Is what I'm almost. That's what I was looking at going because
Like I said,
I
you
personally
could,
love
because
Reasonable Doubt. I love Reasonable Doubt, but if I had a choice, but yeah, no, I was gonna say that Reasonable Doubts. I love Reasonable Doubt too much to be able to judge it correctly. That's why I was gonna say anything. All right. This was the whole point of me writing this whole thing is kind of me doing it by myself at the time, just being able to kind of play back through all of these and think about all of the music and all the stuff like that as I say all that. And I'd like to thank both of you guys for coming back and talking about all of this old people late 20th century music, right? I take that back because M and Kanye are in the aughts. 50s 02. When's that 50 Cent album come out? In 02 or 03? Gonna say, yeah. No.
good
So it's
question.
actually some of this is actually 21st century. Or no. Hmm. It makes no difference. So like, all of those numbers so why not end with the numerical trivia question? I started all this with I read a book and it involved George Washington. So since we're talking tournament, George Washington University is a university that is located in the Metro DC area. And I will ask the number I'm looking for is how many times has George Washington, which I believe now has a very strange name. They used to be I don't remember what they used to be. It doesn't make a difference. How many NCAA tournament appearances does George Washington University have all time? Is the number I'm looking for. Dan, you'd like to take
I'm
a
going.
guess? Oh, go ahead, Kenny. You
Oh,
got a
oh no,
guess?
no, 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 Dan, you can go first.
Oh, I said I was gonna say 7.
7. All right. We're playing Kenny, we're playing Price is Right rules, so
I'm going to say four.
you're gonna go 4. All right. So I was looking up George Washington to see if I couldn't get the name of the silly because they used to be the Commodores. That's what they used to be, but they're no longer the Commodores. Of course, I'm not going to be able to get this answer fast enough. The Revolutionaries. That's why I saw that, and I was like,
Really?
that's
The
random. The
revolutionaries. Yeah,
George
that
Washington
is.
Revolutionaries is the
Wow.
nickname. And you had 7, and Kenny, you had 4. So those are the numbers. Thanks for listening. However, whether it was on Spotify, Apple, or Pandora, you can watch this video. And I don't think I'll put any additions in, but every episode of the Terminal Podcast is at youtube.com/at Terminal Pod. That's the channel for all your questions. The answer to tonight's trivia question will be in the description. I'll be back soon enough with hopefully something better to put down. We'll eventually have to get to these Elite Eight. So those will be coming at some point. Uh, as I said before, Kenny, Dan, thank you both, gentlemen, very much. Take it easy down your life's highway and have a good evening.